Here's my top 50 VR games of all time. Kicking us off, we have a few sword fighting games, first of which is Broken Edge. This is a 1v1 dueling game that plays out similar to fencing. Here you take on the role of various sword fighters throughout history to, well, I guess it's in the title, but break your opponent's edge. There's quite a lot going on with this game with empowering your weapons, so the easy mode is just to pick the knight class and put the pointy thing where it hurts. The quest version also supports mixed reality. But if you want to take on a few more enemies at the same time, then you could consider Until You Fall. This happens to be one of my favorite games that is secretly disguised as a workout. It's a roguelike sword fighter where you have to take on increasingly harder enemies and then you get more powerful each time you die. So you can upgrade your weapon with ether and come back for another go. I really like the two-handed weapons, which feels like a full body workout, and sending mobs into the sky just feels so good. Maybe one that you missed last year was Creamin'. Now this is a relatively short game based on folklore storytelling with quite a bit of comedy. I was pleasantly surprised by the swordplay. It actually felt pretty good, especially when parrying and catching your opponent's weapon as it flies out of their hands. The cartoony graphics make sense, but since it's short, I only recommend picking up when it's on discount. If you want a bit more meat to your story, then up next we have the RPG category, which is my guilty pleasure. And last year we saw 3 massive releases in this genre. Now my pick of the bunch is Dungeons of Eternity, and this is best shared with friends where you can join a party of 3 and conquer randomly generated dungeons and get randomly generated loot. And then we have one of the biggest games of the year, which was Asgard's Wrath 2. And man, I'm only about 4 or 5 hours into this, but there is just so much VR games to play right now. But this is probably something I'll keep coming back throughout the year and chipping away at it. Here you use your godlike powers to possess mortals and take down some bad guys, and there's something like 100 hours of content to get through here. The last one on this list is Assassin's Creed Nexus, proving that AAA titles can indeed come to the standalone Quest store. You take on the role of a hacker for hire and you will travel to different historical settings to uncover new memories as one of 3 legendary assassins. Use your skills of parkour, combat, and stealth to complete your missions. Well, it's an Assassin's Creed game, you know what to do. Now let's go back in time to one of my favorite VR games of all time. It's Skyrim VR, and I am a nostalgic person, and the music in this game just does something silly to my brain. But let me preface this by saying that playing the base game of Skyrim in 2024 is not okay. You have to mod it. Like, in fact, it's mandatory. Here's a couple examples of how this absolutely changes the game. So one mod is Dragonborn Speaks Naturally. This basically removes the need of selecting dialogue options with your controller, and instead you have to say it. This is an absolute game changer for immersion. Another is VRIK, or V-R-I-K. Basically, in the base game, if you want to switch weapons mid-fight, you have to pause the game, go into your favorites menu, stumble around, select your weapon, and then come out of pause. This mod gives you legs and a body and lets you store weapons on it, so you can reach for your bow mid-fight without breaking your immersion. Another one similar to this is Blade and Sorcery. Now, the base game is at least optimized for VR, but still, the modding community comes in clutch and offers an insane amount of content to increase replayability. And you've likely seen footage online of people doing all kinds of crazy things with this game. And then finally, we have Undeath Unchained, which is a VR archery game known for its graphics and gameplay. Now, players can battle through a floating castle in different realms to restore harmony and defeat forsaken souls. The game also has a gate defense mode, which is called a Siege of Heaven, and playing this will actually light up your shoulders. Teeing off the sports section, we have Golf Plus on the Quest, and this is going to be your go-to golf game. Here you can play a full 18 holes. There's 3 different difficulties to choose from, which affect various levels of aim assist and putting lines, so you can work your way up here. There's also a shop so you can upgrade your clubs, and you'll have nothing to blame but yourself for your bad shots. Now this is a blast if you're playing by yourself or with friends. But if you do prefer to spend a little bit more time around the green, then up next we have Walkabout Mini Golf. Here you're transported into vibrant mini golf worlds that either compete with friends or just chill by yourself. But I think what makes it so popular is that they're constantly bringing new games and updates and DLCs to keep you entertained. And then we have Racket Club, which is kind of a mix of tennis and pickleball. Basically, it's a game made for VR, but it works perfectly. So you can either play singles, doubles, and there's a full social aspect to the game. But what I like most is that there's a scaling point system, so the longer the rally goes, the more points it's worth. And if rackets aren't your thing, then how about a paddle? Kayak Mirage is visually one of the best looking games I've ever been in, and here you can just kayak around and enjoy the scenery or have an adrenaline-filled race. It also tracks how far you paddle each day, month, and year, and I was surprised at how much of an intense arm and shoulder workout this is. Up next we have the boxing section, and while technically a sport, boxing just translates so well to VR, I think it deserves a category of its own. Up first is Thrill of the Fight, an absolute classic and probably the most intense VR workout you can get. Unfortunately, there's no multiplayer mode, it's just you and 10 other characters, but they have a load of different settings you can tweak to ensure you're entertained for ages. The quest Quest version also supports AR so you don't break your hand on the wall. Then we have, in my opinion, the best boxing pad simulator, Punch Fit. Here you can choose from a variety of different drills where you're given different combinations of punches and dodges, and tracks range from just a few minutes all the way to 30 minutes. And the best part is that it's completely free. Now, if you do want to get your hands dirty and beat up some kids online, then the most popular is going to be Creed. Definitely not as realistic as the other two, but make no mistake, the music slaps and it's still a decent workout. I also like that there's a bit of a story and you take on the role of Adonis Creed and train with Rocky through the single player game. Now, blurring the lines between boxing and our next section, we have X-Fighter. This was one of the first mixed reality boxing games that I tried, and it's kind of similar to Thrill of the Fight but with a bit of a twist. It's a rhythm boxer, which means your strikes have to be in the beat to the music, which is represented by the lines on your cyborg foe. You can also upload your own music so you never get bored. Now for probably the most famous VR game of all time, Beat Saber. You already know what it is, it's lightsabers versus boxers. I recently got the maul handle from Zyber and this has reignited my love for this game, and I'll put a link in the description so you can get 10% off. But my go-to rhythm game is actually Ragnarok. Now if you can get past the blocky cartoon graphics and maybe have an affinity for rock or metal music, then this is a must pick up. With custom songs, I could pick a few early 2000 punk rock songs, and even though you only technically need to use your arms and wrists, I always end up jumping up and down and burning so many calories playing this one. Audio Trip is another great rhythm game that will get your heart rate up. There's a few ways to play this, but I love their cardio mode, building up a playlist and then just going to town. They have some of the best map songs of any rhythm games with their base game. And while they don't have the level of Beat Saber's custom songs, they do still have a handful of great ones made by their community. Now to destroy your legs so hard that you forget how to walk, we have Pistol Whip, which is a rhythm rail shooter. This game is super satisfying to play, and last year they brought out a level editor, which means that there's custom songs. And if you really want to challenge yourself, pick the modifiers More Bullets and Vengeance to increase the amount of projectiles, and enter Squat and Lunge Simulator. It's probably best to put on Bulletproof as well so you don't die and have to restart. There's the first 20 games done, and for the majority of them you might find yourself a bit out of breath. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits with VR gaming compared to flat screen gaming, is that it gets us gamers off our butts. But if you really want to lean into this, then there are a few dedicated fitness apps worth mentioning. So up first we have Atai, which are the two Les Mills games. Now my personal favorite is Les Mills Body Combat, but I feel like we've already mentioned enough boxing for one video, so I want to highlight their new game XR Dance. This is fun and great for opening up your upper back and dusty old hips. Now speaking about dusty old hips, you can't ask for much more than Yoga VR. Now yoga in VR might sound a bit weird, but thanks to the Quest 3 and its pass-through capabilities, it's actually pretty great. And I love doing this in front of a mirror, and I can sort of step into the pose from the instructor and then look at the mirror to see how I'm doing. Now we're getting into some single player shooting action, and I think it only makes sense at this point to drop Half-Life Alyx. This is the most talked about and liked PCVR game of all time. I recently revisited this for a second playthrough in my Quest 3, and it is just such a beautiful game. I honestly can't believe it's already 4 years old. Time is just moving way too fast. Into the Radius is a post-apocalyptic survival shooter, and while not as popular as Half-Life Alyx, it was just as well received. The level of detail and immersion that the guys at CM Games put into this is just insane. So for example, you have to clean your guns or make sure you have your supplies in order before going back out into the zone, because the last thing you want is having your gun jam mid-fight. Oh, and a sequel is coming out this year and will support co-op. Boneworks, and even though it's getting a little old now, it's still one of the best examples of building a game up with VR in mind. The optimized physics make both the campaign and sandbox mode an absolute blast, and it definitely gives me Half-Life 1 and 2 vibes. There's also a sequel called Bone Labs that you can check out as well. And then we have Vertigo 2, which was probably the best PCVR game that came out last year. Another fantastic, action-packed, 10-hour campaign, completely optimized for VR. Players will see themselves battle through robots and aliens with various really cool sci-fi weapons as they attempt to reach their reactor core. If you agree with me so far, feel free to hit that subscribe button, because up next is multiplayer, and first we have Population 1. Now this is the free-to-play battle royale game. Well, at least for Quest users, PCVR users will have to play, and I only recently got into this, but it's super easy to pick up, and I like that they put you into a noob lobby with others to begin with. Now that we've played a bit, we're getting our teeth kicked in, but it's still fun to play with friends and meet new people online. Pavlov/Contractors. Now I put this as a tie because I feel like they both kind of fit the same purpose. It's your online shooter with mods, so if you want to play Halo or Counter-Strike but in VR, pick up one of these two and you're good to go. Breaches is a little bit newer and it's like a cross between Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six 3. And honestly, it's just a bunch of fun. It's your classical tactical bomb defusal game, and there are very quick kill times, so if you're not very good, then you might spend a whole lot of time dead and a whole lot of time spectating. Hyperdash is one of those paid games that adopted the free-to-play model to increase its player base. It's a super fast-paced multiplayer game that lets you play as futuristic soldiers with the ability to dash. The game features different weapons and game modes like Team Deathmatch and my personal favorite, which is Capture the Flag. And then we have another paid game that converted to free-to-play, which is Blast On. Now this is a 1v1 dueling shooter where you and your opponent will be facing each other and various guns and weapons will spawn around you. So it's your job to pick them up and shoot your opponent while they're doing exactly the same thing to you. The bullets move in slow motion, which means you'll end up doing a bunch of squats and lunges, and there's a full-on rank ladder that you can climb and also upgrade your arsenal of weapons. Ghost of Tabet, and I was just reading this morning that they made $10 million of sales before even making it out of the app lab. This is an insane achievement and very well deserved. It's simultaneously both a PvP and PvE survival-based extraction game, and it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. This game doesn't really hold your hands like Population 1 does. If you drop your gun, you gotta reach down and pick it up. Oh, and make sure to check your safety, and if you do catch a bullet without bandaging, well, you might bleed out and die. I'm sorry if that scared you, but up next is the spooky section, so I needed to prepare you. And we're starting with the Walking Dead series. This has a fully fledged crafting system so you can produce weapons that feel absolutely amazing to slay hordes of zombies, plus the ambience and pacing of this game is just so well done. You always have that sort of sick feeling in your stomach every time you open a door, which you'll either love or hate. In Propagation Hotel, you find yourself stuck in a creepy hotel looking for your lost sister. All of the typical horror stuff happens, the power is out but you need a key to get it back online, but to find the key you need to find some guy called David, but to find David you need a chain cutter. Basically you spend a whole lot of time in dark and a whole lot of time scared. I think it's sort of similar to Creeman, pick it up if it's on sale. In my opinion it's just a great little self-contained story with 3 or 4 hours of being absolutely terrified, and may have received some slack for being a bit short, but not every game needs to be a 20-hour investment, and for my heart rate's sake I was very happy to be done with it. Resident Evil, and here you can honestly play any of them because basically all of them are available via mods through PCVR, but by far the most popular is Resident Evil 4, and that's because it's on the Quest store, and it's kind of crazy that these games weren't made for VR first. It just works so well. With this one you take on the role of Leon S. Kennedy on his mission to rescue the president's daughter, and obviously you end up slaying a bunch of creatures and mind-controlled villages. And the final zombie shooter goes to Arizona Sunrise 1 and 2. Now these have a single player game with quite a bit of comedic relief, which I honestly kind of liked because the last 2 titles kept me up at night, but they also have a zombie wave survival mode, so if you were ever a fan of Call of Duty Zombies then you will love this. PC mod category, and wake up Mr. Freeman because we're back for some Half-Life 2 action. This mod makes the beloved 2004 Half-Life 2 game fully playable in VR. I don't think I really need to say much about this one. It has a 98% upvote rating on Steam. Deep Rock Galactic. That's right, there's a fully playable VR mod for your favorite dwarven space mining game. And what a saturated category that is. The best part is that if you're already playing with a crew of flat screen gamers, then you can still join them without losing any of your progress. I played the engineer class and lining up some of those platforms was difficult, but the immersion is well worth it. At this point I should probably point out UEVR, which now makes a load more flat screens built on the Unreal 4 and 5 engine playable, and here you can experience Harry Potter or even Crash Bandicoot in VR. Coming to number 11 we have Gorilla Tag. I'm putting this because I'm scared of getting abused by racist kids in the comment section, but in all seriousness this is one of the most popular and highly regarded VR games of all time, and it's completely free. With 4 official modes to choose from and a bunch of custom games made by the players themselves, I'm sure you'll never be bored. Demio is probably the best tabletop game in VR, so if you're a fan of D&D or tabletop RPGs then this is a no-brainer. It's crossplay and you can play with parties of up to 4 players, and now there's a newer version called Demio Battles, which is a bit more fast-paced. And if you like these guys, then you'll be pleased to learn that Resolution Games is now working on an official D&D VR experience. Cards and Tankers is a totally free card game where you can battle against other players or just the computer. And whether you're an experienced card game player or new to the genre, you'll love the immersive atmosphere that Cards and Tankers provides. Now I personally put this game off for way too long. After years of Hearthstone, I didn't really understand the point of a card game being in VR until I tried it, and once again this supports cross-platform multiplayer. Up next we have VR Chat, and this probably deserves a category of its own. It is a massive VR social app, and a lot of people get VR just for this. There's a crazy amount of content, from avatars to full worlds to explore, and it's always expanding because the majority of it is user generated. Now I personally only have 3 or 4 hours of game time in VR Chat, but if you look at some of the reviews on Steam, it's not uncommon to see people that have racked up thousands. And I think the quality of this will massively depend on the people you meet in game. Puzzle Time, and this is the category I probably have the least amount of experience in. It's just not why I put on a VR headset, but up first we have Moss 1 and 2. And here you take on the role as a mysterious being known as the Reader to follow the adventures of a mouse named Quill. You help her through various puzzles and combat encounters, and even though I don't really like sitting down to play VR, for this game I make a bit of an exception. Red Matter 2 is graphically an absolute masterpiece in VR. You take on the role of Sasha, an agent awakened in a lunar base. Your mission is to unravel the shrouded mysteries of the elusive red matter. Here you'll have to use your own detective skills to solve puzzles and explore. While there is combat involved, it's definitely secondary. And the final puzzle game is the Room VR, A Dark Matter. Here you're dropped into an investigation of a missing Egyptologist. You have to explore cryptic locations, examine gadgets, and uncover an otherworldly discovery which blurs the lines between reality and illusion. Made with VR in mind, this is a classic and a must pick up for any puzzle fan. Now, even though I am a big dumb stupid head, I do at least like attempting to learn. Now, learning a language is hard, but here you're fully immersed in a world called Nountown, where all of the color has disappeared and it's your job to interact with various NPCs and objects to learn the word, and as you do, you will restore color and unlock more of the islands. I really like the minigame Learning Rush, where NPCs come to an encounter and ask you for something. You have to spin around and find it and present it to them in a timely manner. And I think learning the piano is even harder, but thanks to the Quest 3, mixed reality, and an app called Piano Vision, you can now plug your headset into a keyboard and gamify learning the piano. I love the ability to upload MIDI files I found online, and now I'm learning the Lord of the Rings theme. And the final category is things to show to a friend or bring to a friend's house. And Richie's Plank experience is probably my favorite game or app to bring out, especially for people that have never experienced VR and if they're a little bit older. Like, it's super simple to set up. You put the headset on them and tell them to walk into the lift and push the button. They're then taken to the top floor where they have to walk out on a plank, and everyone in the room gets to laugh at them as their mind explodes and they can't physically bring themselves to take that step. And then we have all-in-one sports VR. Here you get access to 13 sports for the price of one. I think this is great for kids. You can kind of think of it as Wii Sports but for VR. Now, it obviously doesn't go in depth as other sports games with the gameplay or physics, but it's incredibly easy to pick up, and first timers to VR will have no problem enjoying this one. Now, if you want to see a few more sports games, then you can watch this video right here.